Good morning. Everyone should have a handout that says the Larchmont Mamaroneck League of Women Voters Community Conservation Civics Initiative. And this explains what we're doing here. I'm going to speak a little bit about it, but first we're going to hear from Town Supervisor Nancy Seligson and Town Administrator Steve Altieri. Before they speak, I want to begin by thanking Nancy. Has anyone had a chance to, everyone had a chance to sign this? And, okay. And take your best guess. Good morning. Can you pass that to Ina when you're done? I want to thank Nancy Seligson, Steve Altieri, Norm Rosenblum, Ann McAndrews, the tireless work, all of our council people and our trustees that went into both preparing for the storm, for seeing us through the storm, for the aftermath of the storm. You know, one of the unique roles, I'm looking around the room, I see Lynette, I see Sarah, I see people, I see Ann McAndrews. One of the things you know when you volunteer, Carolyn Pomerantz, is the amount of time that goes into making things run smoothly. And it is, when things run smoothly, people don't necessarily know how much work went into making things run smoothly. And I have to say that the work that you did during the storm was extraordinary and exemplary. Every day, getting a phone call, having a lifeline, having a sense of what was happening, it was kind of a scary time. And I think that, you know, knowing that we had people who were working there and giving us the sense that we were making progress, that we were in this together, which we are, was very reassuring to me, and I know that I'm not the only one. I had occasion, good morning, Senator to-be-elect George Latimer. Welcome. One very important thing, there is a notebook coming around, and George, if you could guess the number of kisses in here, there's going to be a raffle afterward, so you can inspect the jar. Yeah, candy kisses. Right, that kind.
He doesn't need the other kind.
I saw Reverend Bill Crawford at the interfaith service for Thanksgiving that was held at Larchmont Temple a couple of days before Thanksgiving. And what he said to me about the aftermath of the storm is that people don't need food so much now, but people in places like Coney Island, Staten Island, Long Island, who were closed out of their homes are now trying to make them habitable again. And so we've collected cleaning supplies over here, bleach and cleaner, etc., which I'll be taking over to Larchmont Avenue Church after today. And I think the needs continue, and we will be, we'll be communicating with you as best we can about that. But thank you to people who made those donations. And again, thank you to our elected leaders. So what I'm going to do, just a brief overview, is Nancy's going to speak about the storm, and Steve is going to speak about what's going on in the town with our energy upgrades. And that's really where we're focused today, which is taking next steps as a community. There are obvious links between how we're consuming, how much we're consuming, the impacts on our weather, the impacts of the weather on our budget, and what we may be able to do as a community to try to get us to the next step. So we're going to begin. I'd like to welcome Nancy Seligson.
Okay, thanks, Beth. Good morning, everyone. This is going to be a little bit of a repeat for those people who were lucky enough to be at the summit meeting when Elliot Engel didn't show up on time. And I just somehow turned into the speaker for a few minutes and talked about Storm Sandy. And I think it's really helpful because I think people are hungry to hear about it, understand what happened and what the government was doing during that time and how we all got through it. And also because I think people really didn't have a good sense of what was going on around them. Without television, without the delivery of the newspaper, without your radio, it was really hard to understand the exact extent of the damage and destruction of this very, very large superstorm. So I just want to let you know that on Thursday, October 25th, we held our first emergency preparedness meeting. Steve and the town staff has created an emergency management plan. We activated it on Thursday before the storm. Remember, the storm didn't hit until Monday. So we had the department heads of all the important departments that we knew would be involved in the storm: police, fire, highway, community service, administration. I think that's it. And yes, emergency services, all sitting around talking about who's going to do what, when it's going to start, how we're going to do it. And on Sunday, I declared my first state of emergency in the town of Mamaroneck, and that allowed us to suspend certain parking regulations, or it actually lends us the power to go in a different route or take different steps to amend laws in order to protect the community. On Monday, the storm started, and things were going pretty well. We opened our emergency operations center at the firehouse, and we had the head of emergency services, the superintendent of highways, the director of community services, fire chief, and a police lieutenant, Steve, assistant administrator Mary Stanton, and myself sitting around saying, "No, we're doing a pretty good job. This isn't bad." At about 5 o'clock, when the wind started to change and pick up, it was like an emergency room after a big accident. The phones were ringing off the hook, and our guys were talking to one another and deploying their people on the ground with walkie-talkies, with two-way radios. And it was just going like this. You could picture what was going on outside, because they were calling in with tree down, wire down, road closed, fire. It was mayhem. And we were trying to get a handle on it. We set up maps on the walls of the town, of flood areas and hurricane category areas. We set up another whiteboard where we were writing down roads that were closed until finally we filled up the whole board and had to put up another one. And by 7 o'clock, Steve and I talked and said, we think we got to pull our highway guys off the road, or 6, I guess it was. It was too dangerous. There were too many things going down, too many roads closed. It was too scary out there. So we told the highway folks, come on in, and we want you to eat dinner and just take a break. We got to see where we are. At that point, I drove back to my house to evacuate my husband from my house, because we were very nervous in my house that we were going to be inundated with water. I dropped him off at a friend's house who lives on the hill on Forest Avenue, and went back to the firehouse to have dinner with the highway department and to thank them. They were out there in a crazy, crazy dangerous time, and let them know how much we appreciated their efforts. By that night, we had 75% of the town without power and 70 roads closed. It's very, very dangerous when we have those kind of conditions in terms of fire. We had several fires that night. We were incredibly lucky. Our fire department and the fire alarms in those homes worked, even though the wires that had gone down and electrified other wires that were going into people's houses could have been a total disaster for us. Our guys were on it, and they were able to control those fires. The next morning, we woke up and we were in a different world. People were completely cut off. The town center was completely cut off. And the firehouse was completely cut off, but we had a generator at the firehouse. So we're running the government out of the firehouse, and we're now running the emergency operations center, which basically they were the same thing at that point, out of the firehouse. We needed to figure out how to get our roads open, and we needed to figure out how to get our power back. We had already started working with Con Ed in advance of the storm. We called Con Ed, we called the Red Cross. We knew that we were going to have to open a shelter, or figured we would. We knew that we're going to need help with Con Ed. We had a Con Ed rep sitting with us, awfully nice guy. Didn't know that much more than us most of the time, but was a help. And we opened a shelter up at the high school. The high school didn't have power, so we were running it on generator as well. If you remember, in those first few days, it was kind of warm still outside, so people were not in such desperate shape. But about 30 to 60 people showed up at the shelter for the first couple of days, and then after day 2, no one showed up, and we decided to close it because it seemed like people were handling it pretty well. When the weather temperature dropped dramatically in the next few days, and we started getting a few panic calls from the incredibly generous libraries who were now housing people, who were setting them up with electricity and letting them plug in and giving them some warmth. We realized that we need to reopen a shelter because they did not have the security set up, they did not have the infrastructure to do that. The county set up daily conference calls with us, and Con Ed set up daily conference calls. Steve and I were on those conference calls with the county. The county emergency management, what is the name of their department? Emergency Services?
Office of Emergency Management.
Office of Emergency Management would man the calls. Thank goodness for us. 2 of our extraordinary firefighters, volunteer firefighters, happened to work for the County Emergency Management Control, and so they were running the calls, and every municipality was on the calls. So they would tell us what was going on, what they knew was going on, and then they would allow each municipality to say what was happening in their municipality. And they'd start from A one day, and they'd start from
Why?
Yonkers the next day. We are M. We're in the middle every single time. So, but what was so good about that is that we got to understand that we were in terrible shape, but guess what? There were a lot of municipalities in worse shape than we were. There were municipalities who, after several days when we did have most of our roads open and we did have some people back with power, they were still 75% without power, still had multiple areas that were inaccessible and unable to reach with emergency services. Another concern for us was that Westchester Joint Waterworks was down. That's our water supplier. That was a major concern. They're running on generator. You want your critical utilities, the hospitals, nursing homes, and utilities to be running on regular power. So that was something we had to push every single day with the county. Then we would get on the call in the afternoon with Con Ed, and that was mayhem. Con Ed would tell us some news. It was very general. It was hundreds of thousands of people out in Westchester. It was how many crews they were trying to get here or already had here. And what we really wanted was the information of how many crews are in my town today and what kind of crews are there. Line crews, troubleshooting crews, restoration crews. We needed to know, and they wouldn't give us that information, and it was driving us crazy. They wouldn't give us their work orders. They gave erroneous information, misleading information. They were terrible communicators, and that was really frustrating. But we did know that they were out there because the guy who was sitting with us, the rep, Lou, would be able to go out in the morning, and he would go around the town and talk to every single person he found who was working there. They speak the same language. I'm not sure what that language is, but they would talk, and he would come back and he would say, they're working on this loop and it should light up this area, and they're going to go to this place next, and we're going to keep them here. And there was a lot of there was almost a competitive feeling in the county about, I want crews in my town now. And the plain fact is that there is a hierarchy of how they address the outages. And it does come down to critical infrastructure first, and then the largest number of people that they can get up. So, you know, if you live in an area that has a lot of trees, that has a few people on your block, and you're not connected to one of the major loops, one of the major electrical loops, it was going to take a long time. At this point, people started calling the town, and they would get to, Tony Siligato, our controller, did an amazing thing. We realized our servers were down. We had no telephone service. We had no computer service. He went to the town center with flashlights and rigged up, I guess with Mike Orkanian.
No, Mike Pinto.
Mike Pinto, who's our chief and brilliant mechanic, and they rigged up extension cords, basically, in and out of the town center, connecting our servers and phones, so that at the firehouse we could now be connected to the computer servers and phones of the town, and that was seriously important. At this point, people are starting to call, though, and be very, very upset. Somehow intelligent, educated, and well-off people thought that we control the electric grid. They were understandably frustrated, concerned, worried, how long am I going to be out? I'm miserable. I have a disabled child. I have an elderly parent. I have someone who's injured. I mean, all kinds of terrible, terrible situations and stories. And they were reaching out to us to say, get me my power. We were making lists of every single person was out. We told every single person, you've got to call Con Ed every single day. We started making daily robocalls. And if you did not receive them, it's because you have not signed up to give us your cell phone call. And I need you to go to www.townofmamaroneck.org. Go on to the Connect CTY, give us your every phone number you can possibly have. We will reach out to you. Sign up for the email blast. You will get those blasts. So daily, Steve and I were getting together. I was writing a little speech. What happened that day? How many people were out? How many people had been restored? What was happening in our community? And what was happening around us? Telling people whether the shelter was open, what time the shelter was open, what was going on in the libraries. We opened the ice rink and the pool for free for a couple of days because we realized the community was getting stir crazy and a little cabin fever and they needed some outlets. Chief of the Fire Department Chief Brendan Collins and I toured around the damage in the first few days with then Senator in campaign George Latimer and with Congressman Eliot Engel to show them what happened in the town of Mamaroneck, to show them the incredible and extensive damage we had. We had 27 houses that had trees go into them, where our building inspector had to go out and tell those people whether they could stay in their house or not. Living in the firehouse. Unfortunately, a few of us think we put on the Sandy 6 because when you're living in the firehouse in the town of Mamaroneck, you are eating pizza, pizza, pizza. And
We had hamburgers one night.
And breakfast, you are having an unbelievable array of sausage, bacon, pancakes, waffles, French toast, and eggs every single morning. So I finally insisted that we had to see something green in the second week that we were there because I couldn't take it anymore. And in fact, everyone appreciated that, which I thought was pretty amazing. During this time, we had a fuel shortage, as you might remember. Not a real fuel shortage, but a fuel delivery situation. The town of Mamaroneck, it was like scoring a drug deal. These guys were on it. They were the most unbelievable, resourceful people. They located fuel. They were able to figure out how to get it to the town of Mamaroneck, how to give it to the village of Larchmont. You know, we were talking about and communicating. Ann and I were communicating as best we could on email. Norman and I communicated several times. Are you okay? How's it going? What can we do together? And I think that really helped bring us together. Let me see what else. We had generator breakdowns. We had all kinds of emergencies during this time. If the generator went down at the firehouse, we were going to be in terrible shape. We were running the Emergency Operations Center and the government out of the firehouse, and the generator started to go pucka, 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 puck one day, and that made us very, very nervous. Again, our chief mechanic, Mike Pinto, got in there and with duct tape and ingenuity and lots of wires, made it work and kept us going. During this time, you have to realize everyone's working extensive shifts, long overtime. We're having to use equipment that has not been used in this kind of capacity ever in sort of a 24-hour clock. Jane Eney, councilwoman, was bringing delicious cookies over to the firehouse and giving us moral support. Ernie Odierna, councilman, and Abby Katz, councilwoman, were calling up, you know, what can we do? What should we do? Reaching out to constituents, telling people what was going on. It was an all-out emergency response mode. I felt that when I crossed the border of the town of Mamaroneck, I got really nervous. You know, I'm not allowed to leave the town. What if something happens? You know, what if someone's tree goes down? What if a fire happens? But everyone realized that we were getting through it. The very upsetting part, of course, was that it took so long to get power back. and people were really starting to go crazy. So with the help of Jane and Abby, my office and I answered 200 phone calls and 350 emails, reaching out to people to tell them, yes, we know you don't have power. We know that you're having a hard time. We know that this is difficult, but we're on it. It's going to get restored. It's going to be better. I wanted Steve to add some of the gory details of what it's like to actually deploy all those people and let you know how that worked, and then connect it to our sustainability effort in the town and the budget, because as I said, this, in order to be able to deal with this kind of storm and take care of the town, we have to have a fund balance, a surplus in our budget. The tax cap makes it very, very difficult to maintain any kind of a surplus or fund balance, because you're just whittling away at your budget all the time, every single part of it, and trying to use whatever surplus you have to boost up or cushion any kind of tax increase to try and avoid a tax cap. We also have to maintain a certain amount of fund balance and surplus to be considered a AAA rated community, which we enjoy right now. We are the highest rated community in the country, along with several others in the county of Westchester. There aren't that many. Larchmont is as well. And Larchmont and the village of Mamaroneck, are connected to the town of Mamaroneck. So we need to maintain those surpluses, and we can't take that surplus and drive it down to zero. Still maintain our AAA rating, be able to borrow at appropriate rates, and serve the community in an emergency. So it's all connected. But Steve, could you add some of the stuff about what actually happened out on the road?
Thank you, Nancy.
All right, well, Nancy's done a great job just going through a lot of the details. As she said, it's just there were lessons learned, and there were things that we are going to we're going to work on. We were very prepared for the storm, but one never quite knows what a storm like this is going to bring. We prepared for up to 8 or 9 inches of rain. As it turned out, we had very little rain, and the flooding was really all caused by storm surge. Even though we lowered the Larchmont Reservoir, we never really needed it. We also learned what it's like to not have a town office for 5 consecutive days, and how do you run the town government. So we're going to talk about some changes to our telephone and our computer systems. The Rube Goldberg approach isn't a bad one, but there are occasions when you need something a little more sophisticated. We use the Emergency Operations Center as a central point to really manage what's going on the street. Rather than having each individual department in separate locations, there are great advantages to us all being in the same room, all talking to one another constantly and keeping track of what's going on at any given time, and there was a lot going on. And it was a new feature for us when Nancy mentioned the point that we literally pulled for some time our emergency service people off the road. We pulled not only the highway, we pulled the police off the road too, and said we're only going to deploy for a life-threatening situation, because literally trees were coming down around people. It's not an attempt to over-dramatize this. I don't think any of us I had never been in a hurricane of this magnitude. So it was quite an event for the town. And you're trying to balance, you're actually trying to conduct a storm on a budget too. So the other advantage of being in the Emergency Operations Center was trying to keep track of what we were spending as time was going along. And some people don't think about that, but part of our emergency operation plan is actually the monitoring of the expenses as we're going along. Not only for our own budget, but obviously in the hopes that we're going to receive reimbursement from FEMA. The deployment was a huge issue. I think we handled it very well. This was a wake-up call for the whole region, not just the town of Mamaroneck or the 2 villages. This was a wake-up call that we are now vulnerable to a major hurricane. If I talk to my colleagues that are in South Carolina and North Carolina, and some of what I do with the International City Managers Group, I do have some contacts down there, they kind of laughed and said, well, welcome to the real world. So we learned now there's vulnerability. And so we're going to have to step up some things. But more importantly, I think one of the things we're going to work on, and Nancy and I spoke of it a little, is to really help you get more prepared for this. I think there were times when the residents themselves weren't prepared. You know, Hurricane Irene didn't really bring the damage and the storm surge that was expected. Tropical Storm Lee, they were serious storms, but nothing like what we had with Hurricane Sandy. So I think the other task for the government is going to be to help you be prepared and to say, you know, we're not crying wolf. There are some serious things here.
Would you mention the generators and the carbon monoxide calls that we got?
Oh yeah, what was happening was a lot of people did go out and buy gasoline-powered generators, but what they were doing is they were putting those gasoline-powered generators right outside of their windows. So we went through a period of time where the fire department was receiving frequent calls for carbon monoxide, and they immediately realized that the exhaust from the generators was going up into kitchen windows, living room windows, whatever it might be. So again, that's just another example of the education process that we're going to go through with all of the residents in the community so that they are prepared. Our plan makes an assumption that for 72 hours there will be no assistance. And you know what? With Hurricane Sandy, that was exactly the case. It was up to the town of Mamaroneck to make sure we were doing everything we could for the community because there was no outside help. Even those communities that did have the National Guard or other county or state assistance, that didn't come for 2 or 3 days. And we're going to try and go through an educational process where we teach you to be independent for 72 hours, or in some cases, to just pack your bags and go. You know, sometimes that's the best thing. And that was part of the problem with Con Ed's communication. There were some residents that were calling and saying, look, if it's going to be 4 or 5 days, just tell us so we can pack our bags and go somewhere else. Well, we didn't have that type of information, so obviously there was nothing to pass along. So anyway, I think there's, you know, this is not the end. Because we went from Storm Sandy back to the budget, the Emergency Management Committee hasn't done its debriefing meeting yet. So we're going to try and do that before the end of the year. And that's going to, you know, that's going to reveal some of the things that we need to improve. But it's also, part of it is also going to be going back out to the community, encouraging more people to sign up for the mass calling system, which was invaluable, and also to educate you how to deal with your own situations during the storm.
I wanted to just add one sec that there was a follow-up meeting with the county after the storm and a follow-up meeting with the Con Ed. They invited the chief elected officials from each municipality to participate. I thought those were incredibly helpful. I mean, I think Con Ed actually heard the message that we need better communication, that we as the municipalities have the ability now to communicate with all of you through the robocalls, through emails, and they need to give us better and more accurate information because their folks on the ground were just winging it. And we finally asked them, begged them, tell them to say nothing. Tell them to say, I don't know. Tell them not to speak because they were telling people such erroneous, misleading information, and that was really driving people crazy. So those meetings were very helpful. Also, with the fire department, I just want to put it in perspective. Our fire chief told us that they get 1 or 2 carbon monoxide calls every few months normally. They had 150 during Sandy, and 40 of them were live, meaning they weren't false alarms. They were actual, you know, carbon monoxide situations. So everything escalates during a storm. And Steve had to look at our highway department, police department, fire department, and decide, you know, what kind of shifts are we going to ask these guys to run? Are they going to run 8-hour shifts, 12-hour shifts, 18-hour shifts? I mean, it was really round-the-clock triage, and it was really difficult. And we were very proud, I can say that, incredibly proud of our department heads who, you know, basically camped out in the firehouse and were there, and they were available throughout the entire storm. And our entire staff really rose to the occasion and recognized that they needed to really put out for the community, and they did. They did a great job. So I'm happy about that. Then we were left with the debris. And, you know, we usually pick up leaves during this time of year. We don't usually pick up logs and trees and branches. And Steve told me that we've picked up more in those 3 weeks of Sandy or 4 weeks of Sandy than we pick up in an entire year. And we don't have a lot of space to house that stuff. This ties into the environment also, because we're talking about what do we do with leaves. If people could mulch their leaves on their lawn instead of having us pick it up, it would help us greatly. It would save the town lots and lots of money. But we also currently keep all that stuff and house that stuff in a staging area in the Hommocks parking lot. It's not an ideal spot to have that kind of stuff being trucked in and out of a school parking lot, and it takes up lots of precious space. I wanted to just move on, if I could, to the Sustainability Collaborative.
Please,
and
yeah,
what we're
that'd be
doing. I hope, as you all know, I'm very interested in reducing energy in the town of Mamaroneck and trying to make us more energy efficient and to save some money in doing so. And I've been working hard to do that, and I'm incredibly lucky because some very talented and expert people contacted me and said they'd like to help with that. One of whom is Beth Radow, another who's here is Mark Carell. And I have been so appreciative to them and thrilled to work with them. And what we've done is to look at what we've already done in the town of Mamaroneck to try and qualify and quantify the steps we've taken to making ourselves more energy efficient and more sustainable. But we're looking forward as well. And the biggest item that we've been looking at is the ice rink. The ice rink is the biggest energy user in the town. Making ice takes tons and tons and tons of energy. I know that hockey player Steve Otis loves ice, and we have a very good rink at the Hommocks. You can't believe how many people come up to me and tell me one of the reasons they moved here is for the ice rink. You know, it's very surprising, but it's a great community feature. It's 23 years old. It needs to be renovated and upgraded without a doubt. I mean, we don't have a choice in that matter, but I would like to see us do it in the most sustainable and energy efficient way. So we have looked at solar, cogeneration, geothermal. We're looking at everything, but right now it looks like we're actually going to wait till 2014 to start the work, because we're looking at trying to put together a package that would allow us to increase the energy efficiency and make more sustainable several town buildings, not just the ice rink, but if we bundle it together with the town center and perhaps with the firehouse and the VFW, we're going to be able to get a bigger bang for our buck in terms of energy efficiency and advantageous financing for it. So it's a very sophisticated and very kind of long-term way to look at it. We could just go in there and replace parts in the Hommocks ice rink, but that would not be the most efficient way to do it from a financing nor an energy efficiency standpoint. And I'm very excited about it, but it's going to take a lot of research. We're relying on our partners in our Sustainability Collaborative. We meet on a regular basis and talk about how we can make the town of Mamaroneck more sustainable. And sustainable in reducing energy, reducing waste, reducing water use, reducing runoff. It's a whole comprehensive approach to making the town of Mamaroneck more sustainable, with the caveat that we want to save money by doing it. And all of these efforts can lead to us saving money as well.
That's great. Thank you, Nancy, and thank you, Steve. Please excuse me if I'm going to read something, because I want to make sure that I don't leave out any details. The goal of the town of Mamaroneck is consistent with the position of the, or I should say, position of the National League of Women Voters' National Call to Action on Global Warming. It includes, and I quote, a fundamental change in our energy mix to both save the planet and provide opportunities for all Americans. We can envision and achieve a world in which our homes and businesses are so efficient that they use zero net energy, that the energy we do use is from clean, homegrown sources like wind and solar power, and that we transport ourselves in American-made plug-in hybrids that get 100 miles to the gallon. The U.S. League has stated as the bottom line about climate change, For those who are serious about reducing their carbon footprint, the primary focus must be on cutting their energy consumption, and that includes everybody in this room. And while government has a role in shaping into enforceable law public policy on climate change, it is ultimately up to every citizen to make the changes in our activities of daily living to put those needed changes into effect for the long term. The Larchmont Mamaroneck League of Women Voters sees this moment as the right time to begin a community-wide energy conservation civics initiative that gets us started together on the path to consuming less while also benefiting ourselves financially and in terms of our carbon emissions, our greenhouse gas emissions, and our community. This initiative isn't voluntary. I will add this is voluntary, but the goal is to engage all sectors of the community in the town of Mamaroneck and our government, our residents, our businesses, our schools, our houses of worship to shift how we consume energy on a daily basis and use less. This is a work in progress. To begin, the League of Women Voters will organize a two-part community-wide conservation civics initiative beginning in January, and it will go on for the year. Let me explain. You heard Nancy Seligson discuss the town building upgrades beginning in 2014, including the town center and the Hommocks ice rink. These upgrades are essential, and while they will help our town run on a more efficient basis, the upgrades will cost money. Nancy spoke about financing, and the financing will be paid for or would be paid for out of sources of funds that come in through the community. We've got competing needs. We have a 2% tax cap. So consider, for example, that the town spent in excess of, I think it was in excess of $228,000 to clean up after Sandy, and maybe that is higher now. This is well in excess, as you mentioned, of what you pay in any year. We haven't even begun in the winter months. The town recently announced the need to rehabilitate an aging water pipe that transports water from the reservoir for us to drink. And then of course we have our recurring costs every year, our town services. So what can we do? Well, each individual in the community can conserve what we consume, and that will help to reduce our carbon footprint. It will also result in personal savings that could be substantial. And to those who are so inclined, there exists a town of Mamaroneck Hommocks Ice Rink trust fund to which you can donate a portion of the savings of what you conserve, and 100% of that will be applied to the town's energy upgrade. Think of it as a civic support in the context of a 2% tax cap. So how would it work? For example, if you drive less and walk more, if you carpool, consolidate shopping trips, and take Metro North into Manhattan instead of driving and parking, you can save a tank of gas or more a month. A tank of gas is what, $60, $65 for typical cars, except for hybrids.
Not mine.
Not yours, because you have a hybrid. There you go. And in the process, when you're not driving so much, you're obviously benefiting the climate. Consider meatless meals. You can not only save the energy used to process the meat and benefit the climate, but I took a look at steaks. I'm not much of a meat eater at all, but I took a look at Stop and Shop the other day at the meat prices. They're quite high. If you were to trade that off for some soy, there's a huge savings there. Put that in the piggy bank.
Right in the sand.
You know what, Ann? They make soy that looks like meat. We can find that one for you. So, but you know where I'm going with this, okay? So that, you take that savings and you put it in a piggy bank. Shift over to LED lighting. This is one of those bulbs that keeps falling on the floor, but with compact fluorescent and LED, you can save a substantial amount. So then we also are going to be suggesting, and on the handout we've got on the back suggestions for you, a home energy audit. There are links to a self-energy audit on the top, but also NYSERDA will send people into your home, and you can also get private people to come into your home with a home energy audit. Sarah?
Huh, cool.
smart ways to save money and make your home more comfortable and green. So I'm sure there's more resources, but I just wanted to let you know I did not.
No, thank you. That's excellent to know. I didn't know. We just found out the other day that the library has this, and we should check to make sure that all the libraries have it. It's an excellent tool. The other thing I might add, and I tried this, is I've got a power strip. I turn it off at night. $10 off of my bill.
Wow.
That's a lot. And that's just beginning. There's some things you may not, be able to turn off on a power strip, but, computers, cell phones, pull them out. What we're going to be doing, because part of what the League of Women Voters is here for is not only voter services, we've got multiple missions. One is public education, and this is going to be a year-long public education process. They're going to work with specialists, both in the community and outside, to be able to post. We're going to have a Facebook page, and we will have links. We're working with the Environmental Committee in the Village of Mamaroneck. My hope is we'll be able to also work with the Environmental Committee in the Village of Larchmont. We've got our Sustainability Collaborative to be able to provide information to you to benefit you, and we're also looking for success stories from you that we can share, because we really are in this together. And you consider what I said about saving 1 tank of gas a month. We're doing this for a year, okay? I'm going to ask people, if you could, keep a journal for your own benefit. I mean, I need to save money in my life, and when I saw that $10, I was like, wow, I can do something with that. On a cumulative basis, these things add up. So when people think one person does not make a difference, au contraire. It does. It makes a huge difference.
It definitely does.
So now, while these energy upgrades will happen, whether or not we engage in this collaborative, the appeal is that we really do, at this point in time, witness Storm Sandy, need to start transitioning into how we operate on a daily basis with the things that we do. And if we do it together, it can actually be somewhat pleasant. So in addition to this conserve, and the mantra I think is going to be conserve, save, and donate. So that's part one. Now, part two, we are going to be celebrating, as we do every year, around Earth Day. In the morning, the Village of Mamaroneck sponsors a cleanup in the community, and that will be taking place. On the 20th of April, we are going to have a silent auction at a place to be determined, but it'll be one of the local buildings. And that silent auction, we're going to be asking people to donate unused gifts that people gave you. Things that, from loved ones that you weren't able to use because it might not meet your needs, but somebody else really wants that gift. They just haven't seen it yet. And you can feel very good about donating it, because it's going to go for the community good. It will go toward the energy upgrade. So we'll have them out on tables, and people can come in and bid on what they want. And at the same location, we're going to have a trashion show. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's a fashion show with, featuring designs made out of recycled materials. And I hope that we're going to have the benefit of having our elected officials, and some of them have left, but we'll be wearing these outfits that were made from recycled materials. And we're also hoping that we're going to get the students at the school involved as well. My hope is that we're going to be able to reach out and find somebody in the design community to be the MC, and we'll be charging a modest admission fee for this, and the admission fee, 100% of it will go toward the energy upgrade. All of the proceeds from the silent auction will go toward the energy upgrade. On Sunday, April 21st, we're going to have a community yard sale. People will be able to rent a space of grass, and for a fee of $25, they can sell what they want, keep the proceeds. If they wish to be particularly benevolent, can donate all or a portion of that also to the fund. But the idea is not only in terms of the donating of the money, which will be, of course, extremely important. It's going to give us an opportunity to clean our homes of things that we really don't need. And we are a very generous community. We give things to other people. Here's an opportunity for us to give back to ourselves and to see how this is going to benefit the community. And so I'm very excited about it. It all seems like it can be a lot of fun. We've got our media involved. The Loop is here. They've already, Polly Kreisman is already committed to making a donation to help us sponsor the Trashion Show. So that's going to be terrific. Pardon me? And the Sound in Town is here, and we'll talk to them about that. about getting them on board. We've got LMC-TV. We're going to be talking to Emily at the high school and work about getting the students involved to chronicle what we're doing so that we can film this, we can watch how we go through the process. So I think that this is going to be a lot of fun. Now, what I want to do now is introduce people in the community who are going to get us started with ideas about how we can use renewable products to get us going, not only on our holiday gifts, but they're even possibly going to help us get ready for our trash and show in the spring. So I'm going to start by introducing Maria Cisneros. For those of you who know Recology, it's a store on Palmer Avenue in Larchmont. And then we're going to have Dusty McCullough, who has Bungalow Blue, which is on Larchmont Avenue. And then Robin Gager, who has written a book called Don't Eat Me. And this is for those of us who are going to now, even including Ann McAndrews, this is for animal lovers who might, occasionally give up a steak, for dinner. So let me turn this over to Maria. Thank you.
Can I just speak from
I
here?
think you can, yeah.
Okay, well, first of all, I just wanted to elaborate on what Elizabeth had said.
This is on LMC, I'll never be able to hear you.
Yeah, you have
No,
to.
we did a testing. We did a testing
They said they're
before
gonna
actually,
edit
and
things out?
I think we're okay. Yeah,
I
unless you
just-
want to come up here, that's
Oh,
fine.
that's
good.
fine. I just wanted to let you know that the first thing, I don't really focus on electricity. In my store, it's mostly about eco-forward fashion. But the first thing that I did in my shop is I just got rid of all of the hi-hats that were in the shop, and I cut down my electricity bill just on average about 75% just by doing that. I had averaging bills about $125 for the electricity that went down to $54. So just by changing your bulbs to LED bulbs in your home or wherever your business is, that is very important alone, and that's pretty much where it stands with me when it comes to me being part of the electrical end of things. I really thought that that was very important to do that. But basically, my shop, Recology, has a mission to highlight eco-forward fashion and trying to get away from the word recycle and just bring up words that are called upcycling, refashioning, repurposing, because when you use the word recycle, a lot of times it has a negative connotation to fashion, and people automatically just think it's plastic bottles, that things are being made from that. But it's really not. It's basically taking materials that would end up in landfills and just making wonderful products that are very affordable and fashionable. And then we have people that are local from Larchmont, Mamaroneck, that bring things in from materials, American artists, and also we do global fair trade, which means that you go around to many different countries and use the fashions that they produce from natural-based plant materials. And I think the best thing for me to do right now is to just give you an idea of some of the products that we carry. The fashion that we have is we have a lot of apparel that's there, but I couldn't bring everything with me as far as that goes. So I do have some accessories to show that these things are from, American artists, and just basically things that you can be really fashionable with, put a look together, and they're less expensive basically because you don't go to China sweatshops, but you go to very individual places in India that might be backing up villages that give women fair trade jobs. And so we do have rigid things to follow as far as when it goes to fair trade, and you have to really abide by their rules for pricing. So just to give you a little idea, the things that can be done, this is actually, the designer's from San Francisco, but he is out of Brazil. He goes to Brazilian villages, and this is bags. He has a whole line of apparel that's made from pull tabs. So this is a pull tab bag, which is very functional. It's great for the evening. And also he has belts. I think it's going to be I can pass them around if you want to, just to actually see how they're made. And I have, let's see, I don't think I'm gonna do
That's all right.
This is probably should be able to pass around, right? Then I have a couple of other things here. This is a clutch bag, which is really fashionable and affordable. The designer is from San Francisco also, but she's originally from the Philippines, so she gets all of newspapers, comics, yellow pages, and she brings them to her villages where her family is in the Philippines. So it's a family thing. You know the people that make the product. It's not just this huge big box company. And these are made from yellow pages that are all hand woven in the villages. And the price points are in the 40s. I mean, they're wonderful. They really are. So there's a, that you could pass that around too. I'm not going to probably go around and pass everything around. But yeah, this is another one. The design is from Florida. She goes, this is made from movie reels. So, and it's so functional. We have a lot of photographers that use it. It's hand embroidered, but it's very strong because it's from movie reels, and you can actually read what they are. Not me with my eyesight, but you actually can. This is another one made from fire hoses. This is a little bit more functional too. It's waterproof. So there's many ways of upping your fashion with repurposed materials.
And we just had to replace something like 200 feet of fire hose,
There you
which
go.
is
You
very
should have donated it.
expensive. So
Absolutely.
this is perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it's just wonderful what people are doing with products. And this is another one that's a belt that's made from the pull tabs. I don't know how much to pull out here.
Oh, that's right. Are you getting ideas for the trash and show? Pretty good
We
stuff.
have recycled sari products, a lot of these that are made from India that come in, all hand done with excess fabric that they have.
You know, is that for a yoga mat?
This is for a yoga mat bag.
Somebody was
And this
looking
is
at that, yeah.
$28 for this. I mean, it's just amazing prices, but good quality products. It's not something that you can feel bad about. Absolutely, you could pass that around. That's a really big seller, by the way.
I think we have to
Okay.
get
Is
these
that
in the
okay?
town.
That's great. We're just so that we make sure that we stay within the timeline. I mean, I could look at all of these fashions,
I know, there's a lot of things.
Maria is on Palmer Avenue across from Starbucks, next to Aroma, for those of you who want to visit her store. It's a lovely store. So that's what I'm going to introduce.
Are worn a bit, you can still take things and you can turn them into something useful and beautiful. And not just for the sake of recycling it, but because it's worth something. It has value. And very much like Maria's store, Recology Bungalow Blue also carries many, many different things. Most of them are handmade. Probably 80% of them are made in the USA. And then whatever isn't, just as Maria does, is fair trade. So we support people who are, women, very many of them are women who are trying to rise above their situations and support their families. And they also have recycled components. And we also go by the philosophy about repurposing and upcycling too, because recycling is when you break the materials down, and that's the process, that uses energy. But when you repurpose something, you're taking something and finding a new use for it. And the same goes for using surplus materials and fabrics and wood and things that would have otherwise ended up in the landfill can now be turned into beautiful things. Just a little creativity and ingenuity sometimes. In addition to the products that I sell, we also offer workshops. And I have just started doing walk-in workshops where I'll have a craft of the week. And if you have some time, you can just come on in and sit down at my table and you can make something eco-friendly and repurpose something into something you can use in your home or wear. This week we just did a workshop for recycling wine bottles into decanters, which really is very, very simple way of purposing. So repurposing or upcycling, because we didn't do anything. We didn't have to break anything down. Just took the labels off the bottles and painted them, and then there's something that you can use in your home. So there's so those are the types of things that Bungalow Blue focuses on. I also have made 4 videos. They're kind of funny and cute and silly on how to go out and make some of these projects on your own, and one of them is on YouTube now. I'm hoping to get the other 3 up soon, and it's sort of Dusty's adventures in upcycling. So maybe at some point we can get those links to you and you can take a look at them. But there is a big need to educate people on the fact that not everything needs to get thrown away or tossed. And even in my workshops, I use, like, how many of you eat sushi? Anybody here eat sushi? Of course. Well, the little containers that the sushi comes in, and I save everything, and I use those in my workshops as little pallets. You can put the little covers back on and keep the paint. I even use contact lens case. Anyone wear contact lenses? I reuse the contact lens cases for little amounts of paint because you can seal them and keep the paint moist. There are so many things that we toss even into the recycling bin that we actually could reuse for something if we can just think a little bit about what we might be able to do with it. So anyway, that's sort of our mission. And we focus a little bit broader. We have a lot of home goods, not so much fashion and clothes, some accessories, but it's very broad. It's definitely a place where we have some art, we have some home goods, we have some fashion accessories, we have some jewelry. For instance, this iPhone case, I'll just pass this around, is made with recycled metal, and then after you're finished with it, it can go in the recycling bin as well and be fully recycled. Coffee cups that you can put on your coffee cup instead of using a paper one. So there's, in addition to things that are recycled or upcycled or repurposed, you can also use reusables, and the reusables keep you from contributing to the landfill as well.
This is great.
Have some. Oh, this is another one. These are really popular with the kids. Love them. They come in a really fun colors, and they're reusable water bottles. So instead of carrying that water bottle around with you and then tossing it in the recycling bin, you can avoid doing this. They can be frozen. They can be go in the dishwasher. They roll right up after you're finished using them, so they throw them back in their bag or their book bag, and they have a nice little clip to clip onto things. These are great. The kids love them, like I said. And I mean, we carry, like I said, so many different types of products. If I can get them out of here. This is an iPad bag, and it's made of canvas with vegetable dyes, and the insides are lined with they're lined with fabric that's made out of recycled bottles. So there's an eco-friendly element to everything in the store. Like I said, it could be a reusable, it could be recycled, it could be repurposed. I don't know, I can't speak for you, Maria, but I make many of the things that are in my store too. I am also an eco-crafter, I guess you might call me. So I do take a lot of pride in the products that we sell, and I do care very much about them. They're not the types of things that are going to last for a season. They're well made. These are artisans very often who are making things that they really care about, beautiful things. So eco-friendly can be chic. And I think that more and more people are getting on there, but not as quickly as we all need it to be. So in any case.
And where is your store?
I'm on Larchmont Avenue, 150 Larchmont. Right between the nail salon and the real estate, Rand Real Estate, Better Homes and Gardens.
Near RA?
Yeah, right on the block of RA.
That's great.
Yeah.
I need to, you want to do that?
I don't know that.
I need to introduce you. Do you want to show that?
Well, we have, I mean, I brought a ton of stuff. I couldn't possibly show everything.
Well, people can stay afterward also.
Paper coasters, recycled paper coasters. I mean, there's just a ton of stuff.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mention recycling in the town?
Sure, and then we're going to, yes, absolutely, we should, and then we're going to introduce Robin.
We also do workshops, so you can book a workshop and you can bring a group in and do a workshop. A girls' night out is always fun. You can make something cool for your house or some jewelry, and I do children's workshops 11 to 100 as well. So if anyone's interested in having a party at the store.
Is that age or size of group?
It definitely is age, not size of group.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Steve,
you.
Thank you very much.
Just very quickly, I wasn't aware that these two merchants were going to come with the recycled material, which is really rather incredible. I don't know if you're all aware, you know, the town of Mamaroneck and the village of Larchmont collaborate on garbage and recycling collection. And we brought the program, the two communities have brought the program to the point where we recycle over 65% of the waste that is generated in the community. And we are, if you look at us county-wide, we're top 5. And the reason for my raising it now is I'm going to appeal to your pocketbook as well. For the town and the village, that's about 12,000 tons of waste. At $26 a ton is something, I just did the calculation now, something over $300,000 a year that we'd save in tipping fees by having all of you put the recycling out every week. So, you know, all of these things that you're seeing today have great benefit, not only in terms of the environment, but in terms of our ability to control our costs and reduce, you know, what we expend for dumping fees. So.
Thank you for making that point, because I think it's very important that what we save and don't throw out is going to work to our benefit ultimately in terms of the taxes. Ernie, did you want to say something?
Yeah, Elizabeth, I was just thinking, we are at a League of Women Voters meeting this morning. We just had an election. And when I see the Board of Elections and their inefficiencies and the number of people and what they do and how they don't take advantage of technology, there's probably a lot of waste in that and a lot of money that the county is spending, perhaps unnecessarily. Maybe the league could look into streamlining or making more efficient our election process.
Well, we should talk about that. We can certainly. I'd be happy to talk to you about that. Have you come to one of our board meetings? Of course, I think you work every night. I mean, I have to say, you know, our town officials are tireless, and it really is quite extraordinary. And I just want to reiterate what I said before. We're very, very lucky to be in a town that works so well and have people, you know, as dedicated. But really, you know, government takes things to a certain point, and then look what we can do. We're connecting a lot of dots today that I think can be very helpful for us after today. Before we say goodbye, I want to introduce Robin, who has written this cookbook, because, you know, so much food waste. We have to connect this very important dot. We spend an enormous amount of energy producing food in this country. Even before it gets to the supermarket, there is an enormous amount of waste throughout the entire cycle. And of course, you know, we can work with our supermarkets, we can work with our producers, but even in speaking to somebody at Stop and Shop recently, she has conversations with some of the people who come in, you know, some of the au pairs and nannies, and they talk about how they buy in bulk, which of course, you know, we are enticed to do because you get the specials, but particularly when you have perishable food, well, I'm going to get all those bananas, or I'm going to get all of that because it's a good deal. And then what do we end up doing? We end up throwing it away. And then that's methane going to our garbage dumps. You know, I know that maybe we burn some of this, but the point is, we need to really start thinking about how do we eat less. Not only what we eat, but the portions of what we eat. So, Robin, please.
Thank you. I am the author of this cookbook, as she mentioned, Don't Eat Me, a cookbook for animal lovers, which always gets a laugh for some reason. But it's basically an imitation meat cookbook. And the goal of the book is to, I mean, I've been a vegan for 5 years and a vegetarian since I was 8 years old. And I understand that people like the taste of meat. And I actually was a huge meat lover when I was a kid until I discovered where it came from. But I'm a bigger animal lover, and that stopped me right away. So, but I'm trying to show people that they can still have the taste of meat that they enjoy while not harming other beings and helping the planet at the same time. And I am an ethical vegan. I do it for ethical reasons. Animals suffer terribly, terribly in the factory farming industry. It's very upsetting to me to even talk about it. But I'm here today to focus more on the environmental impact of choosing not to eat meat, or, which is more realistic for most people, just simply cutting down on your meat consumption. And my suggestion, which I talked to Beth about earlier on, was to possibly institute meat-free Mondays in the school system in the Mamaroneck and Larchmont area. Not only would it be fantastic for the environment, and it would help animals as well, but it could also save money for the community. So I just want to give you a couple facts about how extremely devastating the animal agriculture industry is to the earth. Most people think that emissions from cars are the most harmful thing for the planet, and that is absolutely untrue. It's a very little known fact that the biggest cause of global warming is actually animal agriculture and factory farming. And it's very apropos and interesting that National Geographic this month just did an article on that, on methane emissions, and how animal agriculture is the biggest culprit globally, worldwide. In fact, if you want specifics, as far as human-influenced methane emissions go in the world, 21%, the highest percentage of human-influenced methane emissions are caused by animal agriculture. 21% are caused by animal agriculture. Only like 5% are caused by coal mining, if you want a ratio there. So anyway, if you want to pick up this article in National Geographic, you can read about it. People don't realize that when you have a group of animals stuffed into a factory farm, hundreds of thousands of animals stuffed into a factory farm, the waste that they produce creates so much methane gas, and it's in such a concentrated area. You can actually see from space with modern technology. They show glowing areas of the atmosphere that are, especially concentrated with methane gas. And those areas in the country that light up the most from space, you can see it from space, are the areas in North Carolina and in the South where the factory farms are most concentrated. You can actually see it glowing from space, how bad it is destroying the ozone layer. So if you really, really call yourself an environmentalist, or you're really serious about changing this planet, there are a lot of people, I'm not that hardcore, but there are a lot of people who believe that you cannot be an environmentalist and eat meat at the same time. It is that destructive to our planet. So I would like to propose to whoever's in charge here that you might want to think about meat-free Mondays in the school systems. My boarding school that I went to, Millbrook Boarding School, has already instituted meat-free Mondays as something to do for the environment, something to do for responsibility to other beings on this planet. I'm just going to give you a couple more facts about how you can save money, as Beth was talking about. I too went and looked at steaks last night, which to me is like a horror movie. But I couldn't believe how expensive this meat was. I mean, you can make. I have some suggestions for meals you could have at the schools. You could have lentil soup, which is very hearty and delicious and good for you. You could make enough lentil soup to feed the whole school with some bread and salad. And if you chose to substitute that with meat, it would be like 100 times more expensive for like a steak or something like that. You can serve pasta with marinara sauce. You can serve peanut butter. Peanut butter and jelly is kind of boring, but there's so many options you can do in schools. Just for one day of the week, you take meat off the table, and you tell the kids why you're doing that. Because meat hurts this planet. Meat hurts our bodies. Meat hurts the world in terms of starvation. I don't know if you realize the connection to that as well. Our people in other countries are starving to death because we eat meat 3 times a day. We are personally responsible for that. Not individually, but as a society. And we need to realize that this is our moral obligation. It is not, in my mind, optional. It is a moral obligation we have to raise the vibration of this planet and take responsibility for what we are doing here, because we are destroying this world. The hurricane, they said, was the biggest one to hit the East Coast ever. That's because nature is taking its revenge on us. We are hurting nature, and nature's saying, well, this is what you get for that. I mean, we need to really make some big changes. So I am just going to tell you that my book is sold at Recology. I work at Recology with Maria. You can get it there. I have a new book coming out hopefully next year, in the beginning of next year, which is going to be called The Animal Free Cookbook. But I understand that people like the taste of meat, and that's why these are all imitation meat recipes. They taste like meat. I actually didn't put them in the book unless I tested them on meat eaters, unless they said that they were as good or better than the meat dishes they like, and most people said they thought they were better. So it's just ideas, basically. I mean, the sky's the limit on this stuff. But what I want people to come away with, the biggest thing I want people to come away with today from listening to me talk is that animal agriculture is the #1 cause of global warming. So, if you really are an environmentalist, you have to take it seriously about meat and dairy products. Dairy farms create as much harm for the environment as meat farming does. I'm just going to leave you with a quote from Paul McCartney. I had the page turned, but now I can't find it. It's basically, I pretty much remember it. Paul McCartney says, if you want to do, I gotta find it. Hold on. I don't want to misquote Paul McCartney. Here we go. This is a quote by Paul McCartney, which is in my book. If anyone wants to save the planet, all they have to do is just stop eating meat. That's the single most important thing you could do. It is staggering when you think about it. Vegetarianism and veganism takes care of so many things in one shot: ecology, famine, and cruelty. So I'm going to leave you with that quote from Paul. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Of course you can.
Of course you got some hands coming up. Did you have a question?
Well, I just want to make 2 quick comments.
Okay, please.
First of all, growing up, going to parochial schools in Boston, we had meatless Fridays.
Great.
Oh, yes.
Good.
Within the context of sacrifice and a religious context, and I think that's something that could be a good place to be at.
Very,
So
very cool.
I do enjoy it. But I did want to make a comment in general to the group here that is not associated with you, Robin.
Yes.
And it's something that we found after the storm. And the storm, very simply, was a real game changer for the village of Watchpoint and the town and for the whole country. We had a post-op meeting for a police fire at DPW a couple of days ago. And we're blessed that we don't have our budget season right now. The town does. Ours starts in late January, and here we go again. We had the opportunity to have this meeting. But you obviously wanted to zero in on what went wrong. And at the end of it, we had something very simple to say. We were terrified on Monday and Tuesday, and Wednesday and Thursday, by the number of people who were crossing those caution tapes.
Yep.
We had a situation on Manor Park and at Dog Beach along the water where people were bringing children in strollers, crossing these tapes to go up to see the waves. We were terrified that people were going to be injured by the wave out. Other thing, people were crossing lines, crossing the caution tape. We have to assume, people assume that they were all dead. We have to assume everything on the ground is alive. We were very, very lucky. No one's on Earth. But I got an email from a woman who was saying, no, my husband was clearing the bush with all those wires because Con Ed wasn't there in time. And by the way, I think we're ashamed that you can't do the treating. This is logical. But please, when you see those caution tapes, and you may say, oh, it's just, I can see everything here. Please respect those. And we are going to be going to a lot of thinking now. Manor Park Society, what kind of fencing you can put up in times like this. Tell the people, we are not kidding. If you cross those lines, you're trespassing. We have to do something like this. I've never seen our emergency services as concerned and as upset as saying people bring their young children down and crossing lines. So I just thought we're an
Thank you.
interesting group, and
Yeah.
we're an influential group here. Just make it.
Okay.
Communities thinking.
All right.
You don't cross those lines.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Ina?
Rob.
Thank you, Ina.
I just wanted to add another book to anti-animals, and that's Eating Animals by Jonathan Boyer Safran. He's a great best-selling author, and he uses his talent to describe these factory farms. I mean, you will read this and not want to.
How horrifying it is.
You know, what we will do this year, as I mentioned earlier, this is a part of what we do with the League of Women Voters is public education. And we are looking to people in the community, so, you know, and Ina's on the league with us in New Rochelle. We'll get this information and we're going to make it available to people so that we can all, you know, improve what we're doing.
I also want
Carolyn, did you want to mention something about something going on at the library?
Yeah,
or?
but before I get to that, I have a question. First of all, the library trustee and budget vote is this coming Wednesday, the 12th, at the library. So please, if you live in the village of Mamaroneck, please come and exercise your opportunity to vote for two new trustees and one incumbent who's rerunning and our budget. The question I have is, within the first 72 hours after a storm, many of us, the only connection we have to the outside world is our radio, our battery-powered radio. What, you know, if the telephones are down, the TVs and cable and everything else is down, is there any thought going forward of how we could utilize radio to communicate to our communities and our citizens?
We actually, the thought was, do we start to take what would have been the script for the robocall, and do we send that to a VOX or a WFAS? The problem is, it would probably be better for us to use VOX. There was a time we used to use FAS. The problem is FAS is trying to serve almost the entire southern part of the county from 287 south. And I'm not throwing stones out there, it's merely to say that how do you get your comment, how do you get your announcement in there in a timely fashion, because they have their own programming and they're trying to fit you into their programming. But we have thought about, do we do something with WVOX?
Yeah, because I feel that there are a lot of people who could not receive the robocalls until their their electricity
Yeah, but
came
that's,
back, their cable came back.
but Carolyn, that's why Nancy encourages you to sign up, because the system we use, which is called Blackboard Connect, if you sign up, you can put your cell phone, you can put an email address, and in that first 72 hours, you probably had cell phone at least 10 or 12 of those hours.
It was
Right.
very spotty.
But that's why we encourage you to sign up for the program, because it will call up to 3 numbers per participant.
Right.
Susan?
Just about that, did you text anybody also? Because texts were going through when the phones weren't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good point too.
texting and tweeting are the next step for us that we have to look into. We did not do it at this time, but I think you're right, and
I
you
don't know why that is. Why would the text going through when the phones?
It would go through because much less,
Sometimes they didn't though. You can text them. A lot of
much less bandwidth is required to get text messages.
The only downside of a text is the
It's
text
limited.
has a very limited number of characters. Like, for instance, on our system, it's about 200 characters. It's hard to say anything of meaning in 200 characters. But it's
so
it's
we're
worth
going to look
considering.
into it.
Judy?
One thing that we might look to government for that we cannot do as individuals is put pressure on the telecoms to bring back the copper wire. When I signed up for cable, my copper wire was snipped on my phone. I didn't know that was going to happen. I missed my copper wire terribly, and there have been articles recently, I think in the New York Times and elsewhere, about what a bad job the media has done to informing people about the loss of our copper wire. And if you talk to the telecoms, they'll say, oh, but FiOS is so much better, and cable phones. Yes, there have been a couple of them lately. And I think there was an op-ed in the New York Times. But when I called to say, could I have my copper wire back? Oh, a supervisor will get to you and they never call back. They will not, they don't even, I mean, I had to practically lay my body down on the road to make sure that my elderly parents didn't have their copper wires cut. The telecoms are making much more money with fiber, they don't want to maintain the copper wires, but often, even in an emergency as bad as this one, the copper wires will be up when everything else is down. We have a cable board of
Control.
Can we put pressure as a community and band with other communities to pressure the telecoms to put more thought into what happens in an emergency to the telecommunications infrastructure? And possibly, it's not that it's just copper wire that I love copper wire. I love it because it doesn't go down as often as the others. And
That is,
a battery in your basement that may or may not last for 24 hours is not going to cut it.
right.
Right, thank you.
And
That's,
we can't do that as individuals, but perhaps as a community, we can do that. Other points I wanted to make, and I'll just make them quickly, is can we have more information about how to mulch leaves in place, and if you have a whole lot of trees, whether that's possible?
We can put that on our website, so that
Right,
we,
you don't have to talk about it now. Other thing, we've talked and talked, but maybe it's time to actually do something about it. The expense is burying the wires. We keep talking about it, that it's too expensive, but now we're incurring billions and billions of dollars.
Judy, one of the issues with that has to do with proximity to the water, and when you have storm surge, you have those challenges as well.
Right, I understand. I don't need a conversation. I just want to, if we can get more information out about that. And also, whether there's been recent conversation about maybe next year going to a one-time-a-week garbage pickup, information about how much we possibly could save in terms of money and also pollution. So those are just, and the fourth thing is, if we have to rely on our own resources for 72 hours, do we have enough firepower if we can't call in mutual aid? Do we have enough emergency services to rely as a village and a town without calling in Nourishell, without calling in a big, so that's just, you don't need to answer all of those.
We've got, okay. We're running a little bit over. I just want to recognize Fran and Len, and then I wanted Susan Van Dulsen to make an announcement about some legislation in White Plains. Fran?
I have one big question, and that is concerning the talking about the repurposing. Are we ever going to see the pickup of like the LED bulbs at recycling at my playland or other areas? Because right now I have accumulation of used print cartridges and used LED bulbs, something like you cannot put in the local recycling.
Ralph, do you want to speak
You
about?
can take that over to the Westchester Recycling Center, which is over in Yonkers, I think, or maybe along the spring.
It's off of 87.
It's off 87 something.
You have to, what,
let Steve answer that.
What?
Let Steve answer.
You know what, Steve is going to,
them to Staples.
right.
Yeah.
Steve will, Steve, do you want to mention that?
The Westchester, the center that was being referred to is really up in the Valhalla Grasslands property. You have to make an appointment, and they take appointments every 10 minutes. However, the LED bulbs can be brought to the Maxwell Avenue facility. There is a bin there for the, we take the long fluorescents and we take the LED bulbs.
These are not LED bulbs.
Not LED, the spiral bulbs, I call them. There is a place for them there, so you can take them down. We don't pick them up anymore because we can't mix them in the garbage. But you can bring them down to our facility.
Did you want to, did you?
No, and I just wanted to make a comment that sometimes keeping it simple is very, I guess, whatever. I live in the village of Mamaroneck, and there's an anxiety when it drizzles from now on because we catch an inordinate amount of rain water and we get flooding. Everybody in our area had what is called prepared kits, transistor radios, and everything else. Now the village did an excellent job with the robocalls because Norm sent it out. Then not only that, they took the meter maids or the parking meter attendants. They went by every single person's house and put information in just in regard to what was going on with the storm and then even after the storm. I just think that right now it's almost like a knee-jerk reaction like anything else. Nobody believes in smoking until you catch cancer, and everybody's part of the American Cancer Society. We have received
a very deep warning of these hurricanes and everything else. And as the governor said, what happened 500 years ago was yesterday. If we don't pay attention to that, we will start asking these questions all over again. We should have prepared kits, and I think everybody in the Belgian Marine had one. We all had batteries, we all had transistor radios. So if it can, as Steve said, WBOX or something like that, because the lines of communication, in terms of your computer, iPod, whatever, is not going to make it, even texting or a cell phone. That's just what I just want to say. A prepared kit.
Thank you.
Prepared.
Thank you. There is some proposed legislation in the county that Susan and Ellen Weininger have been working on with respect to Westchester County voting to not accept waste from hydraulic fracturing. That it has toxic chemicals, radioactive material, etc. And there's a hearing on Monday. Susan, can you give details, please?
The Board of Legislators will be doing a public hearing at 10 a.m. at the 148 Martin Avenue on the 8th floor on Monday for this proposed bill. Nassau County passed prohibition on frac waste and sewage treatment plants. Ulster County passed one on the spreading of the frac waste on roads, which is just radioactive waste, and they actually, believe it or not, the DEC can give beneficial use determination for low volume wells currently now. So there is, that waste is in this, not necessarily in Marinette, or not necessarily even in Westchester, we hope, but it is being spread on roads in New York, even though we haven't done high volume fracturing here. So if you guys could, any of you could either come Monday at 10 a.m. to the public hearing, the vote should be held that day, or at least call your county legislator or write an email today to let them know you're supporting this bill to ban this frac waste from the roads and the sewage treatment plants. We've had good response from the county. It should pass hopefully, but we need to support it.
I mean, just to connect the dots, it's very important to understand that these are toxic chemicals in waste. They get spread on roads to de-ice the roads. They are runoff. They go into the water. So if we think that hydraulic fracturing is something that is happening upstate and has no relationship to us because we're not doing horizontal drilling right now, we are mistaken. There is vertical drilling going on. There is waste, even if it's not high volume, and it is very relevant. And when we think about the costs involved in just cleaning up after this storm, if we were then to have frac waste in our waterways, in addition to the kinds of cleanup that we have, it's going to compound the problem. The industry is not fully insured, and we, the taxpayer, would be subsidizing that cleanup. So I would urge all of you, please, to contact Judy Myers. Please send a quick email, and that would be sufficient. I think what I want to do, because we're certainly running over, is Raisa here? She was here, okay, because she won the kisses, so I don't know. Robin, yours...
How many were there?
103.
Oh, okay.
So, Robin, you get the kisses.
You know what's funny? They're not vegan.
Oh, no!
But I'm going to give them to Maria.
Oh, there you go. Okay, you know what you can do? You can, and I just want you to know, and now you may not like this, but this was when we had an event last week. So we're repurposing the kisses because we had some left over. Maybe you could put them in your store. There you go. So we want to thank everybody for coming. This is not an event. This is a process. We're in this together, and we thank you. We'll look forward to taking the journey with you. Please bring that piece of paper home with you, and use the clothespins. Happy holidays.
I'm eyeing your bananas. Can I have one?
You help yourself, please.
Are you going to eat yours?
Yeah, no, you can have it.
I mean, are you going to eat your oatmeal?
Oh, okay, thanks.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you very much.
No, it's good.
Do you think you want to apply?
Yeah, I don't see a reason not
That's
to.
right. Because I think
Joe and I crazy.
As I say, we just...
Thank you.
because I need
I'm glad you
to
noticed.
just have a certainty.
I'll give you the ability, I'll give you...
Way more.
Information by the middle of next
You know, that's right. Because then we can.
It's April 20th.
It's April 21st.
April
It's a Sunday.
21st, okay.
This Saturday, I'm probably going to get the
It's got
comments.
so neat in it.
But you know what we'll do is, you know, my hope is that then we can get